So I'm here at the Stadens Mountains. This is towards the west of the Port Elizabeth metropolitan area, just on the opposite valley to the Lady Slipper Mountain, which you can see in front of us over here. And this sort of represents the eastern front of the Cape Fold Mountains, along with the mountains at Groendal and the Suurberg Range. And of course, tightly associated with the Cape Fold Mountains is the globally acclaimed hyper-diverse Fynbos biome. So in the Port Elizabeth region, there's three main types of fynbos. There's quite a few subunits within those types, but you largely get your coastal dune fynbos in the Skoonmarkerskop, humid Sardinia Bay area, for example. You've got your inland lowland sandstone fynbos. So the type of fynbos you see at places like West Ring, Roalland Park and Malabar. And then we got the mountain fynbos, which you get at the Van Stadens Wildflower Reserve, as well as the Van Stadens Mountains. So this specific type of fynbos is known as a Koga sandstone fynbos. So this fynbos type straddles the eastern and western Cape and stretches from Uniondale through the Baviaanskloof and ends up here at the Elandsberge, the Van Stadens Mountains, as well as Groendal. So one of the biggest aspects of the vegetation of this mountain fynbos that sort of differentiated from the coastal and lowland fynbos is the dominance of the Proteaceae. So you can see this vegetation is a lot taller than the other fynbos types around the PE metro, and that's largely because of the sheer biomass and the diversity of members of the Proteaceae family. So for example, we've got Protea eximia over here. Might find a better example one that's flowering. We've got the oleander leaf Protea here, Protea nerifolia, and this is also the leucodendron, a cone bush, Leucodendron eucalyptifolium. So here's just a nice example of Protea eximia, the broadleaf Protea flowering, with Protea mundia in the background as well. Also have some of the king Protea, Protea cynaroides. Now there is a proteid component in the Algoa sandstone fynbos, the lowland fynbos as well, but that's rather restricted to certain patches and certainly not as dominant as you get in the Koga sandstone fynbos over here, whereas the proteid component is almost absent in the coastal fynbos of the region. The mountain fynbos has its own suite of invasive species as well. So the real problematic species in the coastal fynbos are things like rooikrans, Acacia cyclops, whereas Acacia saligna, perhaps Acacia longifolia, are really problematic in the Algoa sandstone fynbos. But up on these mountains there's things like Hakea soricea, so that's what's in front of us over here. Actually part of the Protea family as well, although from Australia, and just behind that is a pine as well. And as typical with most fynbos types, there is an assemblage of highly localized and endangered species. So this is a red listed species, it's a vulnerable species, Euryops ursinoides, part of the Asteraceae family, the sunflower family. Just take a look at those distinctive lobed leaves, and the distribution of this plant stretches from about the Hankey region to Van Stadens over here. Just spotted a rather enigmatic looking orchid as well. This is a Disa, either Disa hyans, I believe it's to be Disa hyans, or perhaps Disa lugens. And so apart from the Euryops we just saw, there's a handful of other localized, sometimes red listed species that are endemic to these Van Stadens Mountains. We have the Van Stadens Scepter Paranomus reflexus, which we hope to see a little bit later, as well as the Agathosma hirta. It's a little bit more widespread, but I think there's a high chance we'll see that as well. That's a species of buchu, and also Clumia sissoides, which is another member of the sunflower family with a very similar distribution to the Euryops ursinoides we saw a little bit earlier. So this is the road just leading up to the tower, which is at the highest point of the Van Stadens Mountains. So that's at about 600 meters. Most of the peaks here range from about 450 to 600 meters, but along the roadside there's some Real interesting plants. Great place for botanizing, to be honest. We have Erica pectinifolia over here. It's commonly known as the coxcomb heath, but its range stretches a little bit further than just coxcomb. We do get the species in the Algoa sandstone Fynbos as well, off the mountains. Just looking around here, we have Athanasia dentata, part of the Asteraceae family. And some more proteas, Proteaximia, Proteanerifolia, just leaning off the side of the slope here, as well as Protea foliosa. And this is Acheranthemum striatum, so part of the paper daisy tribe, the Naphtali tribe, of which the centre of diversity is in the Port Elizabeth region. And this is just looking out northwards towards the Grundal Mountains, towards Uitenhage, where we get more of the Koga sandstone Fynbos. We've also got a Heliophila over here, Heliophila elongata. Part of the mustard family, the Brassicaceae. And lucky enough to spot Glumia sossoides here. So this is the other localized endemic that I mentioned a little bit earlier. You can see very distinctive recurved leaves, very spiny as well. It's also part of the Asteraceae family. This is just looking down the north facing slope of the mountains here. You can see fairly pristine condition. Proteo-dominant slope on this side. It gets a little bit denser towards these small river lines where things like Soralia come into play. There's some forest at the Van Stadens Wildflower Reserve side, known as Van Stadens Forest Thicket. Some interesting species there, like Secula alexandra, also an endemic species of those forests. Also goes up towards Grundal. But we do see a lot of the area here lost to pine plantations. So just to the center of the image now is an area that looks to be dominated by invasive species, most likely Acacia longifolia, but I'm not too sure from this distance. But then to the right and going on out into the distance is a lot of plant plantations. So a lot of Fynbos lost there, and some pines also getting into the pristine stuff. So this is one member of the Proteaceae that's not part of the genus Protea, nor the genus Leucospermum or Leucodendron, but this is a Paranomus reflexus, known as the Scepters, or the Van Staden Scepter specifically. This is an endangered plant. Its range is pretty localized to the Van Stadens mountains. We've got this one individual that's rather famous on the road up towards the tower near Lady Slipper. Also have a few individuals in the Van Stadens Wildflower Reserve, as well as in the pine plantations surrounding these mountains. This is Paranomus reflexus. See, the flowers are a little bit spent, the flower heads. Normally a pretty vibrant white when flowering.